Woj has dropped yet another bomb on us with news that there is no trade market for Zach LaVine, as the Bulls are actively trying to move him every single day. We're going to get into more of that in this episode of Bulls Digest. I'm your host, Joey Mercer, and before we get into it there today, I just want to say that about 95% of you that watch these videos daily are not subscribed to the channel. So if you're looking for a place for daily Chicago Bulls content, then look no further. This is the place for you. And if you hit the bell for notifications when you go down below and hit subscribe, you won't even have to search for this content anymore. It'll be notified to you, and as soon as we upload, you will be the first to see it. So, yeah, you won't even have to search this anymore, making things easier for you every day here on Bulls Digest. So without further ado, let's get right into the first topic of the day, and that is LaVine's trade value. So that is the question at hand. What was talked about by Adrian Wojnarowski? He really went in and spoke about how there really isn't no trade market right now for Zach LaVine, and there's a lot of things that really have caused that or caused belief of that. Obviously, Woj has way more intel than I have, and he would know what teams are calling and news around the league that isn't being released easily for us to be able to report on. However, this was the first tweet that I saw that Woj dropped a bomb, quote unquote, to say that there is no trade market for Zach LaVine. He said, of course, there is not a market for Zach LaVine right now. And as we can look at that there where it says running of the Bulls, they are 92-92 with a completely 500 record over the last 3 seasons, which is just not getting things done with DeRozan, LaVine, and Vooch. It's really eye-opening too, because in the 2021-22 season, they actually went 46-36. So since 2021-22, they've only won 46 games when they won that many in 2021-22, and that's including the 6 wins that they have so far this season. Well, 7 actually at this point. But all is not lost for the Chicago Bulls right now as they've won their past 2 games, and that was without Zach LaVine. DeRozan looked solid in the game that I got to watch there last night against the New Orleans Pelicans as we came out with a huge victory there. Kobe White was absolutely electric in that game, as that was the best game I've ever seen him play. Even better than the game he had with 7 3-pointers a couple seasons ago. This was top Kobe White, and the Bulls have looked great the past 2 games, even coming back with a big 3 from Caruso to send things into overtime, beating the Milwaukee Bucks in Chicago. So back-to-back home wins is huge, exactly what we needed, and they came as soon as Zach LaVine went down with injury, and one of those games was even without DeMar DeRozan against the Bucks. So interesting to see how things went down with that there. Next thing that I saw was in an article by Hoops Rumors based on the Adrian Wojnarowski tweet, saying there is not a market for Zach LaVine right now in the NBA. That's not because Chicago has not tried to find it, and they're currently trying to find it. Wojnarowski goes on to explain opposing teams' trepidation with potentially acquiring the 2-time All-Star, stating that his contract and production are giving teams pause. I think the question for teams is, how much does Zach LaVine impact winning, especially with his salary and a new salary cap, where you're asking yourself, are we trading for our best player? No. Our second best player? No. So he's our third best player. Do we want to pay that kind of money? I have to agree. I can't argue with that point at all. It is an absolute fact that Zach LaVine is not going to be the number 1 or 2 on another team in the NBA, where you could argue he shouldn't even be the top scorer on this team. I'd like the ball in DeRozan's hands more. So it's interesting enough to see there that the value is going to increase, because to the Bulls, he is currently more valuable than whatever team he is going to, because best situation, he's the 3rd scorer on a good team. But there are rufflings with some other teams that aren't so great that we've heard from Zach LaVine, but there haven't been full reports come out on that so far. But as they develop, we certainly will get more into that. The next thing that I read in the article that really sparked some things to kind of put things into perspective a little bit more was Wojnarowski says the Bulls want to get a decent return for one of their top scorers, but explains that in order for Chicago to get what it wants, teams are going to want to see an uptick in LaVine's production and impact on winning. Through 20 games, the Bulls are 6-14, and LaVine is averaging 21 points per game on 44% shooting, both of which are his lowest averages since his first year in Chicago in 2017-18. LaVine has 18 appearances this year, but is out for at least a week with a foot issue. So the out for a week with a foot issue, that has to do with since the Milwaukee game. So right now he could be back at the end of this week. So we could be looking at, from the time of recording this video, maybe about 4 or 5 days from right now. So he could be back towards like Friday, Saturday situation. Seeing, of course, how he is with the foot, and maybe they're just going to kind of put him on hold until they can find a trade, depending, of course, if a market really opens up, or if things kind of stay stagnant like they seem to currently be right now, as he has struggled, and it doesn't seem like things are going to be much better by playing him. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation right there, for sure. Now that leads us to the second topic of today, and that is the situation. So what is this big situation with Zach LaVine, and why it's been so difficult trading him? Is it just the inefficiency? Is it the contract? Is it the defensive lapses? Or is it all of the above? I would have to say that is probably all of the above, as there are a lot of things causing Zach LaVine's trade value of the actual player that he is to be derailed, because he only plays one side of the ball, has a really, really big contract, doesn't impact winning, and that's a big thing that teams look for when they're looking to acquire such a major contract and asset of a player. The next thing that I saw was, though LaVine has experienced individual success in Chicago, averaging 21 points per game and shooting 39% from 3 on 7 attempts over the past 5 seasons, his team has finished with a winning record just once in his 10 seasons in the league, and the Bulls were among the top tier of the Eastern Conference for the first half of the 21-22 season. But after Lonzo Ball and others suffered injuries, LaVine and the Bulls finished at 46-36 and fell in the first round of the playoffs. The Bulls acquired LaVine alongside Chris Dunn and Lauri Markkanen in 2017 in exchange for Jimmy Butler and Justin Patton. The Bulls are 194 and 291 since trading for LaVine. He holds career averages of 21, 4, and 4 per night. Interesting to see there that that trade was mentioned. Lauri Markkanen at the time was just a draft pick, and so was Justin Patton. And Justin Patton obviously has been in the league now in a few years, and Lauri was and still is a great player, and continues to improve at the Utah Jazz. Chris Dunn, oddly enough, is also in the Utah Jazz after being out of the league. And then Zach LaVine is the only guy that we have been able to keep from the Jimmy Butler trade. And now we're looking to move him as well. So things really haven't worked out since we have moved on from Jimmy Butler. And that is a difficult pill to swallow as a Bulls fan, for sure. And to see that Lonzo went down, I believe Caruso went down at the hands of Grayson Allen, a very dirty player for sure. And they were missing a lot of things going to the playoffs. And I remember we lost to the Bucks in the first round. I believe it was in 5 games. And that was a heartbreaking exit to the playoffs, as the Bulls hadn't made it there in about 4 or 5 years. So that leads us into the final part that I want to talk about today, and that was this, saying that, of course, as Woj says, teams are still trying to figure out their identities at this point in the season, and talks will become more substantial across the league when free agents signed in 2023 become trade eligible on December 15th and January 15th. So we'll keep you up to date on which free agents those are, and it all depends on the type of contract they signed and different things to do with that. It has to do with the CBA and everything to protect players there when they sign contracts so they can't get waived instantly and things like that. And we will keep you up to date with what those players are. I believe Rui Hachimura and D'Angelo Russell are included in that as well. So we will here at Bulls Digest keep you up to date with Zach LaVine, everything you need to know at the Bulls and everything surrounding them and potential trade pieces. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. This has been your host, Joey Mercer. Make sure to go down below, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, like, comment on the video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Signing off.